reawaken to your immortal identity and discover life between life's wisdom. Presented by the Michael Newton Institute. Welcome to another inspiring conversation on the Life Between Lives Wisdom podcast series. In this two-part episode, you'll hear from Dr. Hans TenDam, author of the books Exploring Reincarnation, Deep Healing and Transformation, and How People Make the World, the 10 Global Challenges, just to mention a few. Dr. Hans is a management consultant and transpersonal therapist, and being involved with personal counseling of executives and policymakers led him into the field of what today is known as life coaching. His consultancy focuses on organizational constellations and core issue analysis. And within the field of therapy, he focuses on transpersonal regression therapy. And in between the two fields, he helps people develop what he calls personal mastery. Dr. Hans TenDam is the founder of the World Congress for Regression Therapy and the Earth Association of Regression Therapists, where he served as president from 2007 until 2013. He's also an editorial board member of the International Journal of Regression Therapy. So in this two-part episode, we're discussing the topic of the holographic soul. Very exciting topic. And it's an honor and pleasure to introduce Dr. Hans TenDam to the Life Between Lives Wisdom podcast.
Hi, and it gives me so much pleasure to have my teacher, Hans TenDam, with us today in today's podcast series. Thank you so much for joining us, Hans. I've just got this amazing buzzed feeling in my hands to have my very, very revered, respected teacher here with us. Thank you for joining us.
You just said my teacher. I don't know where I taught you, but your face is familiar. I've seen you. But where did I meet? Where did we meet?
Do you want me to tell everybody about Goa? No.
Goa. Okay. Well. Good.
So, firstly, thank you so much. And Rebecca, this is going to be an amazing session because we're going to discuss a topic which actually mystified me a lot when Hans suggested it. And so we're going to jump right in. And Hans, I wanted to ask you to tell our viewers, what is the concept of the holographic soul?
First, what is a hologram? A hologram is a system that consists of parts, and each part has all the information of the total. That's the definition. And I found that this is an essential concept to understand the soul. You see, we all know the concept of subpersonalities. In some instances, we behave different as another instance, in other circumstances. We may have a critical side, we may have an artistic side. Sometimes we are infantile, sometimes we may be wise, if we are lucky. And of course, in therapy, it's very well known, the concept of inner children. That part of us are experiences as a child in which there was some shock. And it seems like a part of us is frozen in that. That is a part of me. Now, if you go to past lives, it becomes more complicated. I have been a black woman once. When I'm in the session, I experience that as me. But that's not Hans TenDam me. So we are the same, we are identical, and we are different at the same time. So it's like each incarnation is me. And also each incarnation is different. I mean, what would be the purpose is if every time it would be exactly the same. And even if I would be the same in a different, the body is not the same, the circumstance is not the same. So the soul is not something apart from me. I am the soul, but I'm a part of that soul. And you can say that your present personality represents your whole soul. It's the incarnation of you. And at the same time, there are others, personalities that have been. And we all have a source. We all come from somewhere. We all have a first experience in which we were identifying with something else, something bigger. And I don't know a better word for it, although it's a difficult word. It's a divine origin. Now, I'm not God. You are not God. And at the same time, something in us. So there's a holographic relationship between the soul and its personalities, and between the personality and the subpersonalities. But there is also a kind of unity with something that is bigger. So I can consider my different incarnations as different manifestations of the same soul. But we can, like my subpersonality, are different manifestations of TenDam. And my soul is a manifestation of something bigger than me. So I think that the concept of the hologram gives a very precise meaning at the difference between me and my soul. Now, for example, there's, I believe it's a theosophical term, but I'm not sure where it comes from, the higher self and the lower self. But that means that low is lower and high is higher. I think the holographic relationship between the bigger and the smaller is a better term. I am me. That doesn't mean that I know who I am, because there are parts of me that I have forgotten. There are parts of me that I have not yet discovered. There are parts of me that are asleep at the moment. So in whatever activity you are, you show a part of yourself. You are never fully present. And at the same time, you may be fully present. So is a paradox. And the paradox is solved because of the concept of hologram. I hope that clarifies at least my thinking on it.
It does. And I'm just trying to understand something here, Hans, that, when we were looking at the understanding of physics and then metaphysics is something that in the last decade or so or more, people have been dabbling a lot into it. And then now that we are getting into this zone, somewhere in all of this, there is a basis or a foundation of mathematics. Where, if I remember correctly, and this is something that I quote very often, that even in the world of regression therapy or the way we work with our clients, 2 + 2 does add up to 4. So when you were explaining the understanding of how I am the soul, and there's a part of me in the soul, and there's this a certain synchronicity where, as you said, some of it I've already recognized and I've probably experienced, and some I'm yet to experience and recognize certain facets. This then brings me to the understanding that in today's dynamic of the way we all function, we've also heard this statement of the super soul. We've also heard statements like super consciousness. So my question would be then, from the understanding of what you just said, what the holographic soul is, what is then the advanced or the more enhanced understanding of the super consciousness or the holographic super soul? What's the correlation there?
Now you're making it really complicated because I think this has to do with the difference between soul and mind.
Yeah.
Have you been married?
I have.
Or maybe you still are, but now.
I'm not, but I was.
You was. Okay. Well, when you're married, you are part of a larger system. And it's possible that you and your husband share some things. So the field that is formed when two people meet is different from the field of A and B. It's a thing in common. But there are two things different there. There can be a kind of energy exchange, which means that the souls are interacting and the souls are being part of a bigger field. Are you an oversoul? No, because when you separate, when you divorce, that can be painful, but still you remain you, and the other one remains himself too. But there has been a part of interaction between two souls. So in my soul history, there is something of all my real encounters with other people. But there's also something in the mind. When we are discussing things, when we are talking and communicating, we try to come to a certain understanding. That understanding may be bigger than the understanding of A or B or C. So I would rather say I believe in an overmind than in an oversoul. The oversoul is what I come from. And I come from a source, and probably there have me more souls coming from that source. I'm pretty sure about that. But when we have interaction, and when you talk about developments in the world, I would say that is more the mind, it's more the spirit, the spiritual things. And the spiritual field is not individual by definition. When we try to understand something, we try to come to an understanding that is not only my personal understanding, but is something we communicate here. Now, of course, when you are communicating, there's also something like a personal meeting. But that is separate from the understanding. So we may have come from oversouls. And by the way, I may have come from, at least that's my view on things, I may have come from a different source than you, or than Tibet. And still we can meet, and still we can discuss, and still we can understand, and still we can connect on both mentally and on the soul level. But it doesn't mean that when we are creating a field together, that means that we come from the same soul, oversoul or whatever. And also there are thoughts that we can develop to such a level that we become part of a bigger whole. That there is kind of development possible. And that each soul can develop itself to become a kind of oversoul. But, well, you wouldn't use that word like that. So this is the whole theme of that whatever happening individually, there are fields, and the fields are more common. And the question is the field changing? Yes. I'm a bit, how would you call it? not critical, that's not the right word. But you see, in 1900, many people thought that will be a shift to spirituality. Theosophy was coming up. And what in fact, in between 1860 and 1890, psychology and parapsychology were almost equal fields. But parapsychology has completely been killed off. Today it's a trickle of what it once was. And at that time, people thought this was a kind of thing that would develop. And I'm not sure of that, for historical reasons. So fields may grow, but they may go down together. And there are other fields and there are competitions and there are many energies. So I do not think that we will all come together and sing hallelujah together. And by the way, my hallelujah may be a little bit different from your hallelujah. And maybe that's not a problem. Maybe it is a problem, but maybe it's not a problem. Maybe it's also a rich thing. As long as I can at least hear your kind of hallelujah and can accept and respect that, and I hope that you respect and maybe then the different types of hallelujah make a chorus on a different level. So certainly interesting things are happening, but I have a very open mind towards that will lead.